once again to discuss things.
Ready then?
Yep.
Alright. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I'm Sid Part2. Joining me today is the Curious Lo.
I'm back.
Yay! She's back. So, we're doing a little something different with character discussions for the foreseeable future, where I'll just be doing a rotating cast of people. So, Deadpoolzilla will still be back, Steve will be back, a bunch of people will be back. But, yeah, I'll be doing rotating hosts on character discussions, so this should be fun. So, thanks for joining me for this, Lo.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you let me pick the character, so of course I'm going to be here.
Yeah. That'd be a weird one. Hey, Lo, pick a character for Manos and I to talk about. Yeah, so I don't know. This should be interesting. Lo, who did you choose for us to discuss today?
Only the best character ever, Poe motherfucking Dameron.
Poe motherfucking Dameron. So yeah, Poe is a really interesting character in the fact that he's not really supposed to be one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think his role in the most recent movie would be nearly as big as it was if it weren't for the fact that just a million fangirls and fanboys, latched onto him for some reason. I mean, I know the reason. It's because he's sexy as hell and fucking awesome. But, yeah, he's not, especially in the first movie, he doesn't really have, a character arc or anything. He's just a badass.
Well, and it's so hard to narrow some of this stuff down between rumor and fact or whatever, but, from what I understood, the original script had Poe die when we think Poe dies in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, too.
Yeah, and then J.J. Abrams just kind of came up to him and was like, hey, I found a way to keep you in the movie. He's like, what? And he just, Oscar Isaac was so not ready for it, but everyone just really liked him. And so it's really interesting that Poe became such a well-liked character in the new franchise, even though initially he wasn't intended to be a huge part of it. They just, kind of did the trend of casting kind of a really big, or not, I don't know how big an actor Oscar Isaac is, but a bigger actor for a bit role.
Yeah.
Any other movie, that would have just been some Joe Schmo actor, but they are like, we're doing this thing in Hollywood now where we cast pretty big for even small parts. And I don't know, it's interesting how that all worked out, and just it's not just the attachment that the fan base had to him, right? It's the attachment that the people on set had to him.
And I'm sure that has so much to do with Oscar Isaac. I mean, that character is charismatic as hell with what little they give him. Assuming that it just ended where it was supposed to end with him dying as they crash landed into Jakku, just with that little bit, he made it so amazing. I don't know how much of it was Oscar Isaac, riffing, the whole, you talk first, I talk first thing. It's hard to tell. I mean, maybe it's in the script. I haven't actually sat down and read the actual script or anything, but some of those lines are just amazing, and I can absolutely see them, even if they were the same lines, not being as well received and as just kind of smooth and cocky without someone like Oscar Isaac portraying the character.
And that's the thing that I find really interesting, because you read the Poe Dameron comic for a bit, right?
I did. I didn't finish it. I think I got all of the issues, but I just never got around to finishing them. I should, because I have them in a box somewhere, but such is the life of reading single issues and also having a kid.
Right. No, I was reading that for a while, and I just remember being really disappointed in it a lot of the times. Part of it's Charles Soule, and I do a whole rant every time I talk about a Charles Soule book on comic reviews, but Charles Soule is a really inconsistent writer in quality, because he'll do multiple comics at the same time, and you can tell which one he's putting his time and energy into based on the quality of the story arc, because one story arc will be really good, and if you read another book by him, the other story arc will kind of suck. and it'll just be passable. And that was definitely the case with the Poe Dameron comic, and that was the one he put the least amount of effort into because there were only a couple good arcs. And I think, part of that is I just think Soule as a writer's problem, but part of it is I think Poe Dameron's got to be a really hard character to write without the benefit of having Oscar Isaac there to play him.
Oh, yeah, and I also think that, especially because the comic, and I'm sure he was given some of the privilege of knowing what was going to happen, sort of, for his character in the future. But, you wouldn't need it. It all takes place prior to the movies, so, you can get away with not knowing anything, and so you're just left with what is essentially just a charismatic smartass who's a good pilot. Like, that's not a character. And this is coming from, personally, in my opinion, I'm like one of the biggest Poe Dameron fans. Like, I love him. My son's middle name is Dameron, okay? I can put my money where my mouth is. Like, but he's not just based on the first movie, or the seventh movie, whatever. On The Force Awakens, he's not a character. He's a caricature, He's this amazing, pinnacle of manhood for Finn to look up to. Like, he's there for Finn to be inspired by and help escape and all that sort of stuff. His character is definitely there for Finn.
He's an archetype, and Star Wars is full of those, right? Like, Star Wars is the thing that takes the tropes and tries to tell a story that checks as many boxes of storytelling tropes as it can, but still be genuinely compelling. Like, that's all over the original trilogy, that's all over the prequels, and it's all over the sequel trilogy, done to varying degrees of success in each one. And so Poe Dameron, in Force Awakens is introduced as that kind of character, and those tropes are rigidly followed. And so much about what makes him work, again, does come down to the actor, which is just, I have a hard time thinking of other times that's the case, where so much of what makes a character enjoyable is on the actor portraying them.
Oh, yeah.
There's definitely the times where I'm like, okay, if this actor wasn't here, it wouldn't be as good a thing, but you could still definitely make an argument that the character themselves on the page is really interesting. But, Poe Dameron, I love him in the movies, but damn, I don't think anyone else could play him the same way.
I agree. I mean, maybe it's just because I can't separate Poe from his actor. They look exactly the same, Tends to happen.
That actually brings up an interesting point. Are you planning to watch Star Wars Resistance at all? Because Poe's going to be in that, and I don't believe Oscar Isaac is going to be voicing him.
Girl, okay. I am a horrible Star Wars fan. I consume nothing that is extended universe legends, like any of that. I'm so bad. And I've seen a few episodes of Clone Wars. I think I saw one episode of Rebels. Not that I wouldn't love to watch them, but I just have never had the time. I don't have cable, so it's a whole rigmarole for me to try and get a hold of them. And it's you don't get them until they're available online, a year or more later. So there's that whole thing. So I don't know. I haven't before, but I will say that I'm more intrigued to watch this show than I have with the other two, simply because Poe's in it. I'm like, ooh, I do love me some Poe.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to keep track of it.
Well, that's something I'm really interested in, is to see how well someone else is going to be able to not only write the character, but portray the character. That's the thing that's really got me fascinated. And, kind of the elephant in the room here is it's really hard to talk about Poe without talking about Han Solo, because they fit a lot of the same bill, I feel.
They do, but I think they do a good job of creating different pathways for the two characters. Because, if you look at it just from, describe them in a sentence or less, you've got cocky, great pilot, if you disregard the movie Solo, in which he's an awful pilot for no reason, you start in the same place, but I think they've done a good job, on purpose, obviously, of not creating the same character with the same archetype.
Yeah, so, I agree with that.
Yeah, you have some other archetypal things, like the whole scoundrel low life stuff that you've got going on with Han, and then the sort of hero complex that Poe
There you go.
has.
Yeah, yeah.
That
And
Han never had. Like, Han could care less what people thought about him, or at least on the surface, he pretended to care less. And, like, he was willing to cut and run. This wasn't his fight type of a thing. And Poe is, especially when you start bringing in The Last Jedi, he's very much got this sort of, like
Poe has the
rose,
"this will be a good death" moment.
yes, and like a rosy outlook on war. He looks at it as this like heroic romantic thing, that you never really see that with Han.
Yeah, no, I agree. But it's just I bring that up because we've had Han played by multiple people at this point. It's not just Harrison Ford's role anymore. Whereas Oscar Isaac is the only one to have really played Poe up until we get Resistance. And so I'm really curious to see what that turns into. But you brought up Last Jedi, which is kind of what I'd been dancing around for a minute here.
Same.
So Last Jedi, here come the comments. Last Jedi is this really interesting thing where, you have J.J. Abrams do the thing of like, oh, I fixed it, I know how to bring it back. And then you have Rian Johnson left with, okay, what do I do with this character who initially we had no plans for? Well, here's the archetype he's following. What is interesting to do with that archetype? And yeah, you were definitely right. He does have this kind of romanticized, storybook image of war in his head, which makes perfect sense for a kid who grew up in the shadow of a revolution.
And he has a mother who's, and I mean, I said that I read like none of the extended stuff. I've read a bit of Poe stuff just because I'm that obsessed with him. But like his mother was a war hero as well, and so he has
Poe was conceived on the night that the second Death Star blew up. I mean, like, Jesus Christ, right? It's kind of crazy. Like, he grew up in the shadow of a successful revolution against the tyrannical monsters, and you look at Star Wars, and that's kind of what like the first trilogy did is put the idea of the classic heroes fighting the evil thing and put it up on a pedestal. And so Poe is that kid who grew up loving Star Wars, literally.
Yeah.
He grew up idolizing Luke Skywalker, idolizing Princess Leia, all this stuff. He grew up like that. And so he's got this image of, at least from my opinion, from my assessment of Last Jedi's character position for him, he's got this idea of what a hero is, what a hero does. And the movie's plot does some interesting stuff to invert that and say, that's what you're told what a hero does. It's not always that cut and dry.
Yeah.
And I really, really appreciated that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't want to turn this into a Last Jedi gush phase because Lord knows we'll get a million comments about it. And like, hey, dear listener,
you severely overestimate the amount of people who give a shit about my channel.
I don't know. Hey, we know that we still get a couple of people who shall not be named who come over to like flame war every once in a while. It happens.
Right.
But, like, if you don't like Last Jedi, that's great. And honestly, I have some issues with it, too. But, like, I fucking love that movie. Especially having just watched it for the first time since theaters, like, about 2 weeks ago. Might have been. I don't remember exactly. And I was having so much fun with it. And honestly, big part of it is because of Poe. I love his plot line. And, like, I love seeing this character that, I mean, we were already kind of discussing it, but, like, was such a, not in a bad way necessarily, but just a one-dimensional character. He wasn't there to have a plot. That wasn't what his role was. He was there to just look cool and fly, I almost said airplanes, fly spaceships. And
fake nerd girl. Fake
to then flip that around and have that, the whole reason that he was there in the first movie, to just look cool and blow stuff up, be the reason that he is suddenly laid low and like being in trouble and demoted is because he was looking cool and flying spaceships, is awesome. To take that, exactly what you built him up to be, and just totally turn it on its head.
Exactly. And again, it's such an inversion of the trope, and Star Wars is so based on so many tropey genre things. It's like a World War II film in space in a lot of ways. So much of it's just pulled right from those old World War II films. Not like the propaganda films, but like the films made during the war kind of stuff. Like those in particular. It's also in reference to that, and we've seen so much of this hero complex of, you know, the guy who's going to do the right thing, damn what the brass says. So much of that is just ingrained in like the public consciousness of that's what a hero is. It's someone who doesn't follow orders, who goes with their gut, and like I love the way that the movie kind of lays that argument. It's like, no, that can be very useful. It's also a great way for people to get killed. There's a reason that there's a high brass that thinks these things through. And their job is to try to not get you all killed.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because you say you don't watch a lot of the extended stuff. I would say watch Clone Wars because there's a really good arc in that where a general is just Ulysses S. Grant. It's a
I've
Jedi
seen episodes. I just never like sat down and watched it front to back. My husband
totally
has seen it many times, so like I've watched episodes with him. But yeah, there's definitely stuff I missed.
No, but there's a story arc where there's a Jedi general and he's just Ulysses S. Grant with the clone army, and he's just like, you know, just we've got more numbers than them. You guys just keep pushing. I don't care how many of you die. And that is a terrible general. That is the worst kind of general you could possibly have. And so, like, that's the kind of general that Poe would be, though, if not for the fact that Leia demoted him at the beginning of Last Jedi. That's the kind of general that he would be, is like, oh, if we just keep pushing, we'll be able to get through, you know, and it's presented all at the very beginning of the movie. It's like, oh, we have the chance to take out a dreadnought. Yeah, but, like, at what fucking cost, you idiot? You're losing so many people along the way, and so many very important units that, like, that probably would have been really useful, like, 3 hours later in the movie, when you guys were kind of cornered somewhere. I like shit like that. It's really, it's very intelligently thought through.
And just to go back to talking about him like going against the higher ups and everything, I really appreciate the fact that Holdo wasn't a traitor, because all of the earmarks in the movie were like, she's doing something and Poe, our hero, doesn't trust her, so we don't trust her either. And like, okay, cool, he's mutinying her, like, you know, awesome, he's going to get back control and he's going to save everybody. And then to, again, for the second time in the movie, have it just be like, Poe, what the fuck are you thinking? What does Leia say? Get your head out of your cockpit? I think it's Leia that says that, which is a brilliant line, by the way. Is amazing to, I don't know, I'm the type of person that, and I'm sure lots of people are like this, but just that you like, I can guess exactly what's going to happen in a movie. Like halfway through, I know the end. Because Hollywood is very paint by numbers a lot of the time. And it was so refreshing. And it didn't feel like it was out of nowhere. Because, you know, you go back and it's not like Holdo ever actually did anything sneaky. She was just not talking to a guy that all she knew about him was that he had just been demoted for doing a really stupid thing. Like, why would she trust him? Like, it makes sense that she wouldn't be telling him stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I really wanted to touch on that before we got too far away from it. Sorry.
No, totally. You're dead right. I love that about it. It's what's also really important. You brought up the mutiny scene. I really like that scene because it shows you not only is Poe like a danger to himself, his charisma is a danger to others, because he convinces people to just follow him, and like he's an inspiring motherfucker. And that's great in some situations, like when he inspires everyone to go take out Starkiller Base in Force Awakens. But it's also really fucking dangerous when you've got to be more tactful. And the fact that he inspires a mutiny just based on his gut feeling and everyone else's trust of him is a fucking problem.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know how to keep himself in check in that regard. And that's the lesson he learns in Last Jedi.
I'm so excited just to look toward the future to see where he goes in the next movie, because you had this character that was so one-dimensional in The Force Awakens, and then you gave him a ton of conflict and stuff to wrestle with, and I hope that they really address like the guilt that I assume he feels after all the dust has settled and they're no longer running for their lives, and they finally, I mean, I assume there's going to be at least a little bit of a breath at the beginning of the movie, especially because I think the rumors are that it's going to be a time jump a bit, probably mostly because they're going to have to deal with the fact that Leia is not with them. But yeah, I really hope that they stick with that as far as I don't know, I'm just really excited to see where his arc goes. I feel like it can go some really interesting places that I don't feel like we've seen, at least in the main canon of like the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, that's just not something that I feel is played with enough. And I don't know, it's interesting to compare him with the other kind of hot-headed hero complex character in Star Wars that I feel is really of note. Little guy, you know, it's kind of an obscure character, Anakin Skywalker. Like, they have a lot of similarities, so it's not like that the franchise hasn't touched on elements of the trope before and played with it in the idea of that can also be a dangerous thing. But it's that Poe presents a very different aspect of it because he doesn't have this whole chosen one dynamic thrown on him. So just something interesting to chew on and think about.
Oh, for sure. I hadn't really thought about the parallels between the two of them, to be honest. I mean, they both have like a very big chip on their shoulder, for sure.
Yeah,
and they both have a lot of natural talent.
Yep.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'll have to think about that more.
All right. So I guess there's one more elephant in the room to address then while we're talking about Poe.
Go on, I'm ready.
I was waiting for you to like scream it from the rooftops or something. So yeah, do you ship Finn and Poe?
Oh my Lord Jesus, yes I do. And like, listen, okay, I'm a big shipper. I love shipping. I think it's super fun. I also consider myself a very rational shipper. I am totally okay with things not becoming canon. I try not to go crazy in that sense. Like, it's just fun to be like, these two characters, like, what would it be like if they were together? Like, yeah, it's fun for me to be a part of that part of a fandom. I mean, like, I am not LGBT, so obviously it's a little hard for me to be in that frame of mind, because I know for a lot of them it is like a, hey, we want to see this be canon because they want to see more representation, and I am so down for it being canon. I would be okay if it wasn't. What I will be upset about is if they're just like, oh, Finn and Rose are going to be together now. I do not hate Rose. I think she's a fine character. But I do feel like that came out of nowhere. That's a conversation for another day. Or even more so, if they're like, Poe and Rey are going to be together. I feel like that would be very strange too. Like, I would rather just there not be a romance with either of them than have them like with somebody else, especially because everybody's aware of it. Like, everybody knows, specifically Oscar. Like, Oscar is so on board with it. He's like, oh yeah, I totally played Poe as gay. Like, he said it in like multiple interviews, which is probably not the best thing to do, because if it doesn't become canon, people are going to be really upset. But anyway, I just talked for like a good 2 minutes straight. What do you think?
No, you're
about
fine. You're fine. No, I actually, like, it's the thing of, I never would have thought of it. I remember when I came out of
in the theater, I was like,
yeah?
I was like, ooh, they gay for each other. There's
No, I never would have thought of it. I came out of the theater, I'm like, oh yeah, Finn and Poe kind of had a cool dynamic going on, and then I saw the shipping, I'm like, you know, yeah, I get it. That makes sense. That could work. My thing has always been Finn in Force Awakens shows a very particularly like this is what a gentleman does for a lady thing aspect towards Rey, and so I wasn't sure what they were trying to go for with that, if they were trying to set up the possibility of a romance there, on at least romantic feelings on Finn's part. But man, just the fan reaction, and then there's just so many good arguments for the fact that Star Wars does not have a lot of LGBT characters. Like the only canon one is just a one-off character in the Lords of the Sith book, and she's a bad guy kind of thing. So it's like, get rid of that.
Yeah. Which would be fine if there were lots of LGBTQ plus characters. Then it would be fine because, yes, of course there are going to be some bad guys. But when it's the only one, you're like, oh, all right.
Yeah, and it's just like passing. It's not even a huge character in the thing, so it's just like, no. And so there's so many good arguments for it, and this seems like the creative team that would just go like, yeah, fuck it, why not? I mean, we brought Poe back on a whim. Why the fuck not make these two a couple? It just depends on for me on how well they can sell in the story, and I believe that they could make it work. I trust Abrams and Johnson and company as writers to be able to make something like that work. Damn the reactionary fan base. I don't give a shit about that. I don't know, like, it's something I never would have thought of, and I think it's just really cool that people got so into it, and that there is a really good argument for it, because, yeah, like, oh man, you can keep my jacket, it looks better on you. Woo, flirty.
That's like the line that people latch onto. Like, for real, there aren't like a ton of things, but like as a person who tends to ship things, you see something like that and you're like, oh, he looked Finn up and down in that jacket. Like, even if it wasn't a conscious decision, like, it's in there.
Yeah, so no, I totally get that. I get it now. I didn't initially. I was like, oh, all right, whatever. But no, the more I've heard about it, the more I'm like, yeah, I can totally see this. I'm certainly not going to be like angry or disappointed if it doesn't happen, assuming they had a plan already and they didn't do something specifically because everyone was talking about these characters being gay. That would be the part of it that pisses me off. But if they've like, no, see, we're setting this kind of relationship up since the beginning, I'd be like, oh, all right.
Honestly,
I don't know.
I think one of the worst things they could do is like lean into it like super hard. Because while I do see it in like the subtext and whatever, and my shipper goggles are like, oh yeah, they're in love, like, I also, again, try to be rational. Star Wars there are love stories, but the more they're focused on, the suckier the movie is, not pointing any fingers at a specific movie in the prequel trilogy. But like, I mean, I don't think that that's something that most Star Wars fans really care that much about. Like, they do, I mean, I guess just for me as a Star Wars fan, I don't want to put words in other people's mouths, but I think for me, generally, I think of Star Wars as more like adventure, fun movies. And like, yeah, there's going to be like, the guy gets the scoundrel saves the space princess and all is well. I guess the space princess saves the scoundrel at one point as well. But, like,
playing with them
there,
tropes.
But it's not, I don't know, I never feel like it's like the main focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be the biggest mistake that they could make. Like, yeah, okay, fine, you put other characters together, and like, really, I'm not going to be that upset as long as it's well done. I would be a little upset if they like lean so hard into it that it's like very obvious that they're just like, hey, fans really wanted this, so we're doing it, and we didn't think it through, and now there's just like, it's like weird and out of nowhere. Because as much as I'm fangirling and being like, they're in love, like, it's not like super set up. I would rather it be a very like low-key thing there, not like the fucking like quote gay moment that was in Beauty and the Beast. I don't know how much you follow Disney fandom. No idea. That was they like totally hyped up that there was going to be like, oh man, there's a gay character in the new live action Beauty and the Beast, and like it was the character LeFou, and then the only time that they reference it was like he like looks at a guy and like raises his eyebrows or something like that. Like, it's real dumb. Like, they obviously just promoted it to be like, hey, everybody who wants a gay character, like, we're pandering to the masses, like, come see our movie. So I feel like they could easily slip into that if they get a little too pandery. But I don't know. I am somebody who really loves J.J. Abrams' work. Like, I adore it. So in many different forms, like, I love Star Trek, Lost, Alias. Like, I'm a big J.J. fan, so
fair enough.
I trust him to make good decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope they do something with it. To what extent, you know, I'll be perfectly honest, I'm more invested in Rey and Kylo's story than I am in Finn and Poe and all them, but I like all of the characters, so.
Same.
Yeah. All right, last couple things to talk about real quick. Design stuff. I love Poe's fashion sense. The brown leather is just a good look. And that fucking black and orange X-Wing is the coolest shit.
The sickest X-Wing ever. It's so amazing. I have literally right behind my head right now, I have 2 different models of it.
Nice.
If my voice got quiet, it's because I was turning around to see how many models.
Oh yeah, to see and point
right
them out so that all of us listening to the podcast can see them too. Thank you, Lola.
Yeah, I realized as I turned my head, I was like, wait, this is just audio.
You can Vanna White them all day. It'll be fine. No, yeah, like that X-Wing, it's so cool. Like, I just, from the first time you saw it with the fucking shot in the original teaser when it's skimming across the water and shit. Oh, it's always been so cool. So yeah, I love the X-Wing. BB-8 and Poe look awesome together on screen. I know BB-8 has like not had nearly the screen time he's had with Finn compared to what he's had with Finn, but man, those two look really cool together. It's so
belly scratches at one point, and I love it. BB-8 is just Poe's puppy. It's great. Like, it's a droid. It doesn't need belly scratches, but Poe gives it to them.
BB-8 needs those belly scratches. It's an important part of maintenance. Yeah. So that's all really cool. I'm a little disappointed that they killed the sexy-ass X-Wing. God damn it.
If you got it, it's so they can sell more toys. They'll have another cool sexy-ass X-Wing.
Yeah, like, I mean, this nothing to do with anything, but there's that moment in Force Awakens where C-3PO shows up. He's like, oh, you're probably wondering about the red arm. And I'm like, I just want to dub over that scene one day and be like, it's so that people have to buy more toys and merchandising because now I have a red arm. But yeah, you're totally right. Man, speaking of the X-Wing, I love the shot in Last Jedi where it comes into the ship to land and you see like exhaust coming out from the bottom of it. It's really cool. You know, it's weird. We're getting close to wrapping up, but we've never discussed like Poe's biggest character trait, which is that he's a really good pilot.
Oh yeah, we haven't super discussed it. You're right. Well, he's one hell of a pilot, to quote Poe's boyfriend.
Yeah, I mean, no lie. It's like I love the line in Force Awakens, like, if it's got wings, I can fly it. That is just a really, really cool line, and they do a really good job of establishing his skill on screen by not just talking him up, but by actually showing it, which is really, really cool. Like, you have that great shot from Finn's perspective on the ground of Poe doing all the loops and shooting out the TIE fighters.
Oh, yeah.
It's really fucking cool.
That,
and like
one moment where he like swoops right over Finn and like it pans with Finn watching him and Finn's just like, woo! Like, it's so great. It's like, brilliant adrenaline.
Yeah, totally. I love that sequence. I also really, really like the opening of Last Jedi when he's fighting the TIE fighters above the Dreadnought. That's amazing.
There is a moment in that sequence where he like makes a sudden turn and he like puts his hand on the side of like his cockpit to like brace himself because he's about to experience some serious G's, and like it is so fucking sexy. Like, just something about that. I don't know if he made that choice or if it was the director or somebody else like telling him like, oh, you should do that because you're like making a big turn, but like, damn. It's like so like that's right. I know exactly what the fuck I'm doing. Like, let's do this. Here we go. Like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah, I mean, the funny part about that is doing that would probably just be a really good way to break your arm, but it doesn't matter because it's just so intense in the moment.
This isn't Star Trek, it's Star Wars. Nothing makes sense.
I know. You're totally right. No, I like that. And again, on that note of things don't make any sense, but they look cool, so we're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
Like when he's on that turn, and then he's got like the wings folded together, and then he pops them out into the X so he can like corner really quick.
Yeah.
It's like the logic there is supposed to be that it lets more air or something capture it, but it's in fucking space.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't help you turn at all, but it's cool as shit. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff with Poe being a great pilot, and yeah, it's pretty neat to see. As someone who's a Green Lantern fan, Hal Jordan fan, that's the kind of stuff that's just really super enjoyable. All right, I think that's good on character stuff. Normally we do recommendations, but I mean, what's there to recommend? Force Awakens, Last Jedi, maybe the second arc of the Poe Dameron comic. I thought that one was pretty good.
And what's the new show called? Resistance? That was called? Okay. Maybe. We don't know. Could be shit. But he is in it. We know that. Right.
Okay. Well, I don't know. That was a fun one, though. Thanks for joining me on this one, Lo.
Thanks for having me. I was ecstatic to talk about Poe.
Nice. All right, everyone. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the Token Lady.
And we are your Geeky Gentleman and Lady. And we will be discussing things.